So I'm going flat out. I'm like in this empty road. Yes, I'm in my Ferrari in Africa. Tarmac ends. So I literally go around the corner like this off the tarmac onto loose surface, thinking, oh, this was a mistake. I think like any car guy, I'm always looking for the next big adventure. And I had this Ferrari 360 Modena, which I'd owned for like 5 or 6 years. And it became that car that I only used for big adventures. You know, I'd stopped using it for the day-to-day cars and coffees or drive out. So I'd taken it down to Tenerife at one point. It's a beautiful island just off the coast of Africa. And I'd taken it all through Europe and, you know, down to the south coast, the north coast, everywhere you could imagine. And I suddenly thought, well, you know, the next place I should take it is to the desert. There's a very famous British YouTuber, well-liked British YouTuber called Harry Metcalf, Harry's Garage, who I think a few years earlier had done a similar trip in his Testarossa. And that was harking back to a historic magazine article where a guy had driven a Testarossa to the desert. I thought, well, I don't own a Testarossa, but I do own a Ferrari, so off we go. And the aim was, yes, get my 360 to the Sahara Desert. Now, of course, there's a few things that you have to do to prepare a car to kind of go into the sand, into the heat, and with the sort of slightly unpredictability of Moroccan roads, I definitely wasn't going to take the highway, of which there aren't too many in Morocco, but I purposefully picked a route that was kind of slightly backwards, and I wanted to explore the country because I love exploring and I love travel. So we did a few things. We adjusted the ride height to give me a little bit more ground clearance, did a tiny bit of protection, added an additional fan to kind of aid with cooling, changed some of the intakes, things like that. All kind of simple stuff, but enough preparations to be like, cool, off you go and on your way. So I had a long drive down to the south of Spain, caught a ferry across and arrived into Morocco. Now, all of the advice that you can find online says insurance, bit of a headache, but Morocco, they have insurers as you arrive from the ferry port. So you get off the ferry and there were like 3 or 4 booths to get you insurance, you know, for the trip. So I'm like, cool, that's what I'll do. So came off the ferry, went over to the booth that says insurers, closed. I'm like, So I start looking around, there's some people walking around. I said, do you know when insurance is opening? Closed. I went, well, yes, but when does it open? No, closed. So it turns out those booths not open when I was there. So I think, okay, well, do I want to drive through Morocco in my Ferrari with no insurance? Probably not, so I make a few phone calls. Hey, a bit stuck, need insurance. Sorry, we can't insure you. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't cover it because of Brexit and EU laws and all this stuff. So there I am in the port of Morocco with an adventure ahead of me. I'd already driven all the way there. And I thought, well, suck it. let's crack on and hope that we're okay. So sent off on this kind of 3 or 4 day adventure around Morocco with no insurance in a Ferrari. And I tell you what, it was the adventure of a lifetime. If you have never been to Morocco, forget Marrakesh, get out and explore, because firstly, the size of this country really blew my mind, but the variety of the landscape is insane. To me, it reminded me of like Iowa or parts of Tennessee, like super green, lots of cornfields, flat, huge hilly regions. I thought immediately I was going to be in the desert. Not at all. Beautiful, beautiful landscape and amazing people. I do know that they have a lot of very nice cars in Morocco, but they tend to be on the west coast. I was deep in the east, so I'm following tractors with hail bales stacked as high as what felt like the Empire State Building. I was like, how is that not toppling over? Horse and carts, donkeys, cows, sheep, everything you can imagine, and then me and my red Ferrari cruising through. And it felt like a real exploration. I hardly saw a soul on many of the roads. Then I come through these little tiny desert towns where they were had proper old markets, people trading all different kinds of goods and tires and bread and food and everything. And every stop of the way, I was just so welcomed and excited to be there. But obviously I had this mission, right? Let's get to the desert. So after a few interesting drives, I started to get into slightly more desert-like terrain. And the roads really started opening up. So I was like, well, here we are. I'm in a Ferrari. Off we go. And I kind of forgot that I was in Morocco, where road infrastructure isn't like many other places around the world. So I'm going flat out. I'm like in this empty road. Yes, I'm in my Ferrari in Africa. Tarmac ends. So I literally go around the corner like this off the tarmac onto loose surface, thinking, oh, this was a mistake. Definitely didn't have enough time to scrub the speed. Was very thankful for the additional ground clearance. sort of hold on for dear life, suddenly boom, boom, back up on tarmac, realised that, okay, fine, beautiful country, amazing roads, not necessarily a place to go particularly fast. So slow the speed down. And after 2.5 days, eventually made it to the edge of the Sahara Desert, which is an unbelievably cool place. It's where they film endless movies. It's where they do training for the Dakar Rally. They have lots of camps there for off-roading experiences. And my sole focus and goal was find a way to make it look like I'm deep in the desert without having to drive deep into the desert. So I'm sort of cruising around, looking down these little side roads and things like that. And I finally find a sort of path that looks like it leads to some sand dunes. So off I go, park up the car, looks epic. If you look that way, it's just this sand dune backdrop. Look that way, loads of hotels and cafes. We don't have to point the camera that way. It looks the part. And just as I'm taking my photos, this busload of tourists comes down the road going for a sort of authentic desert experience. And there I am, Ferrari in the desert, looking amazing, looking beautiful. And I think they were quite shocked. But it was, one of those sort of life goal, proper adventures that I think as car people we seek out. It was me in the car. We bonded. I have so many visceral memories of parts of that trip. Epic twisting mountain roads, huge vast expanses, petrol stations where huge flocks of children and people would come and check out the car and look at it. The car was fairly faultless, so again, like my sort of relationship with that car grew even stronger. Yeah, I think I would repeat it in a heartbeat. I don't know what car I would take that's appropriate, but yeah, I since then have recommended to everyone, if you get the chance, go to Morocco, hire a car or take your car there and do some exploring, because it's a beautiful, beautiful country. It's funny how I actually ended up buying that Ferrari because I genuinely had a dream. My all-time dream car was a 360 Challenge Stradale, but in the dream I had a manual version. And now they didn't actually make any manual versions at the factory. They all came with the semi-automated F1 flappy paddle gearbox. So I woke up and I went, well, firstly I can't afford a Challenge Stradale, and secondly they didn't make a manual, so what's my next best option? So I started doing some research and I was like, there's no really cars out there that fit the mold. I'll put something out on Instagram stories. So I just put out a post saying, had a dream and a Ferrari manual 360 Modena. If anyone knows any of sale, let me know. About 3 hours later, a guy sent me a message saying, hey, my dad's got this car for sale. Is it of any interest? Clicked the link and it was literally the car from my dreams. So red car over a tan interior, factory carbon fibre bucket seats as of the Challenge Stradale, factory roll cage, factory fire extinguisher, factory challenge grills, harnesses. It was as racy a spec as you could get for the Modena without it being a Stradale. And we never really got to the bottom of it, but I sort of did. That essentially 5 of these cars were ordered as a demonstration of a racy spec you could do in the UK. So a dealer group in the UK ordered 5 identical cars as a sort of promotional event for, track days, and there was the 360 Challenge program as well. And so this was this is what you can do without it being a Stradale. That was my car, that was my first Ferrari. I bought it when I was, 27 or 28. So, well below my 30th birthday, which was my goal, buy a Ferrari before I was 30. It was everything to me. It was very easy to drive, weirdly. It had so much soul and character and personality. I'm a Schumacher guy. That, he was my hero. So that was a car from his era. And it just kept performing. I sort of figured out how to drive it to its sort of most aggressive ways. Every time I got in it, putting those harnesses on, which was so overkill for a 20-year-old Ferrari, but just felt the part. And I did, as I say, some huge adventures in it over the years. We sort of just improved it in every area we could. I teamed up with a garage in the UK called AV Engineering, who I would argue, and if not the world's best independent Ferrari garage, probably Europe's, and have been awarded the UK's best for 3 years in a row. And they just knew how to just finesse and tweak. We put the ECU from the 360 Challenge in there, so my red line went from 8,500 RPM to 9,200 RPM. Full factory Challenge Stradale exhaust, so it sounded the part. We improved the braking system by upgrading to sort of carbon ceramic feeling pads. And, just lots of things to make it, I think, one of the best 360 Modenas in the world. But it was my baby. It was my car, my thing. And so, using it for the big trips felt right and felt appropriate because, I had a proper sort of slightly romantic link with the car, which is borderline inappropriate. But that's what happens to us, doesn't it? I think I owned the car for 6.5 or 7 years. It was a good chunk of time. Easily put about 35 5,000 miles on it. I think I sold it with 60,000 miles in the end. There are periods where, 2019, for example, I did this big round the world trip. I drove the car 20 miles that year. But then most other years it was used for these adventures. So it would stack up 5, 7, 10,000 quite easily. I took it to the Ferrari factory, parked it in front of the iconic factory gates, took it up to the Alps and covered in snow to get that shot of the red against the white of the snow. Did the Mille Miglia Ferrari tribute in it, which was really the absolute experience of a lifetime. And yeah, hilarious. That's probably a story for another time. But yeah, I really feel like me and that car were so at one. The only reason that I ever decided to sell it was because my actual dream car became available, the Transstradale. And I always said I will only sell the Modena for a Transstradale, and that's what ended up happening.
Have you ever gotten an automated speeding ticket either from a fixed position camera or a school zone? In the US, that's less common than it is in Europe, and most of the time when you get the notification, they'll tell you that it's just about the payment, that they're not going to report anything. As long as you pay your speeding ticket, you won't have any points on your license or any additional risks. But did you know that those are some of the easiest tickets of all to fight and beat, especially with a partner like the Ticket Clinic? In Florida so far, they are 500-0. They've never lost fighting one of these tickets. So not only can they get them totally thrown out, but they can save you a ton of money. So check them out now at the link in the description below. You can actually just take a picture of your ticket, no matter when it comes in the mail or how you're issued a ticket, and text that picture to 305-305, and that'll get them on the case immediately. They'll let you know exactly what the proper course of action is and what their strategies are for every local municipality or jurisdiction to get your ticket dealt with. And of course, for regular tickets, for speeding tickets and things like that, the Ticket Clinic is your perfect partner to fight every one. They'll help you avoid costly fines, risk of license suspension, points on your license, jail time, higher insurance premiums, all the bad things that come with getting a bad ticket. The Ticket Clinic can help. They've got a nationwide network of attorneys that can help you find the perfect local partner that knows your area, knows your county, knows everything about it, and can help you fight your ticket and achieve the best possible outcome. So check them out now at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.